Shut up, dog. Yeah. So I called into a blog talk conversation to have a discussion with some ladies regarding the whole situation going on in Baltimore with the mom. I do notice one thing with a big issue with black folks is Negroes don't know how to disagree. If you look at the debates and the conversations on YouTube and you get how many attacks and whatnot that go on because people express different opinions, it's ridiculous. And you can't really get anywhere in life with just, you know, attacking individuals based on their views, whether it be political or social. You're not going to get anywhere with doing that. So I think it's a good idea to have dialogue with people who don't necessarily see your view and have real questions and debate the topic, not attack each other's, who they are as people, but, debate the conversation or just have a conversation. Don't even have a debate. And that's, I guess, what I was attempting to do. I called in there and they were talking, you know, typically what I expected, from two black women. I think both of them are mothers, and and they have a different perspective than I would have. I wanted to bring some clarity, but I called in kind of late. I could have called in earlier to a question that was asked, but about as far as what's the difference between like the white cops beating the kid and the black mom beating the kid or whatever. But I didn't get to go there, but I did get to come in there and make a couple points I wanted to make, and it was a cool collective conversation. And I've listened to a lot of blog talk conversations when usually it goes the other way when people want to point and push blame and point fingers instead of just having a dialogue. So I think that's good. I want to start doing more of that myself. You know, getting perspectives from a female, I guess, or because everybody doesn't think the same way. You might find and see that what you're saying might it might open their minds to some things that they never thought of before, and vice versa. But I'm on this blog talk, and it's only I think I don't know. I'll put the link to the whole conversation in the video. Basically, they're talking for the first 40 minutes. I come on in within the last 10. But it was just more typical stuff. They, about the mom and what she did, the going on in interviews and whatnot. It was more of a, she did the right thing because the father's not there type of narrative. And I wanted to bring in more things about, how we, we do demonize a man's absence, but we praise a woman's choices, or how, how does this look as a mom, because you're wired differently as a woman, and your response is to be more obedient and to behave. But how does that translate into a man's life a boy when he becomes a man? When his mother was the one who told him not to be radical, or told him not to stand up for himself, or because there are situations where you're gonna have to, and being a passive man and not being prepared for this world is damaging. So we don't look at any of those aspects. We talked about how Terry Crews was on The View talking about how fathers are needed, but he got flack for that. He got a lot of negative tweets, and then he goes on to The View, and I think Jen McCarthy and Whoopi were both trying to say no, you're not needed. So that's another question that I want to bring out is how do we, how do we convey that fathers are important when the narrative in the media, right? I've done several videos you can see of women who have a platform, whether it's Nia Long in her Essence article or Jill Scott in her Ebony article or whatever. The video I have of the video of the woman who's 35, trying to have a 27-year-old baby daddy, talking about she doesn't need the father to be in the kid's life. But those are all things that need to be discussed more out, because so we can more so get out of the blame game, and I guess look to solutions or whatever if there are any. But I guess I'm gonna play the clip of them talking for a while. Then I'll play the clip when I join in, and I'll just leave the link to the whole conversation. But that's it. Check it out.
I don't know how we'll turn up, but that's what I'm saying. That kind of person. But if it is just me, then now, not only do I have to worry about financially how we're going to take care of these things, how are you going to live? How are you going to get to school? You're going to have to grow up, and when I tell you not to go in the street, we don't have time for trial and error. Because if I'm not here and you go in the street, you could be dead. So you got to get it the first time. And so I get what that mother was doing. You may not get a second chance to get this one right. so I have to snatch you out of line now.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think, Sherrod, because like your dad, but although I think my dad probably made yours look like Mr. Rogers. They and Daddy has been gone for I think 4 years this year, but the guys from our old neighborhood still talk about Mr. Ross and the fact that because my father had 4 daughters. He was not playing with neighborhood boys. You better not be anywhere around our house when my father got home from work. He was not playing those games. In fact, after I moved out, my baby sister was telling me that somebody was parked on his side of the house, and they were doing something that he didn't approve of. I don't know what it was, but we lived on a corner, and my father asked the man to take his activities somewhere else. And the man said to him, "Oh, old man, shut up, so-and-so and so." And Tina was about 11 years old or something. She was like, "Daddy, you can't do that." My father went and got his rifle and aimed it out of the window. I was like, and a lot of our children are young men. Even though I resented the heck out of it growing up, as an adult, I look back and see that I was extremely protected. He protected us from the little games that girls who didn't have fathers and the boys could run on them. We got protected from all of that stuff. But also, we have a kind of what we call our only brother who followed my sister home from school, and the only way he could talk to her was to go to church. And they never got any romantic involvement, but he saw the way Dad ran his house, and he has been impacted by that because he said he never saw a man protect his family like this. So a lot of our sons being victimized by police and by each other on the street could use the protection of their fathers, while we are saying she shouldn't have hit him, she shouldn't have snatched him, that's black-on-black crime, that's child abuse. Enough already. I am going to throw down men, get in your place.
Yes, because and even in the natural order of things with animals, the male animal is like, you don't cross him. Because if you cross him, you need to go start your own pack somewhere else. And so, and so you have to have that male presence there that establishes authority.
Yeah, yeah, you do. But also in the species, if you attack the cubs, everybody knows the female is the more vicious of the two.
Oh, yeah.
You will die trying to bother a lioness's club. And it is the same way. You carry somebody in your body 9 months, they make you sick, you throw up, you can't eat the stuff you like, your teeth fall out, your nose gets big, and all of that. And then they come here and want to throw rocks at the police after you've told them not to. Yeah, you might. And I don't know that if you have never not done that, you even have the capacity to understand what emotions come to the forefront, because it is a different set of instincts. God did make us different. We have different sets of instincts. The instinct of a mother is to protect her children by any means necessary. Fathers give their children identity. They affirm purpose. Now, mothers can do that, but nobody can do it like a father. And so if you have a whole society of people out without a sense of purpose, without a sense of identity, and then we want to, smash the moms for being tougher than they need to be, than they were intended to be, I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. So, what thoughts might you have?
I just think that being a mom in 2015, it's more than likely you're dealing with some single mothers, and you have to play both roles. and you have to deal with the criticisms as they come, and just know that you're doing the best that you can to raise your child. And sometimes you're going to, I don't know. I'm still going to stick to I commend the lady because she did what she had to do. And then I even mentioned before the show about the mother who turned in her 16-year-old son in Houston because she recognized him on the news for stealing an iPad from a toddler. And it's like she didn't have to turn him in. She could have just been like, well, you hear, blah, 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 and don't do that anymore, that type of thing. But we're in a different day and age now, and you have to teach the kids that there are consequences for their actions. And if we don't teach them, then they will end up in the custody of a police officer or dead somewhere. And that's what you don't want. That's what you're trying to prevent. And so to me, whatever needs to be done to be a mom and to take care of your family, I say do it because you don't want the shoulda, coulda, woulda to come years later.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Those regrets. What if I had? What if I had? And the overwhelming guilt of every possible mistake that you've made is already enough. But then to complicate that by second-guessing yourself if something tragic happens. And, yeah, I hear people who are saying we're not supposed to be motivated by fear. And I wonder, though, if it's really fear or knowledge of what could happen. It's not like we're making this stuff up about people dying in police custody. It's not like the things that we're seeing aren't real. So is it really a fear-based reaction, or is it common sense that we teach our children or we snatch them by any means necessary to keep them from doing things that could possibly get them killed? And yes, even after all of that, they could still be pulled over. My son, I have a son, and he has been profiled. We had to get rid of a truck that he was driving in college because it kept getting pulled over. It was a purple truck that we had bought from some friends of ours that had tinted windows. And, oh, my goodness, every time he went someplace, I was so glad to sell that truck I didn't know what to do because they do get profiled, and it is not fair. And the fact that he is about to graduate from college, I used to feel like the man on that Scandal episode, if we could just get him out of high school, if we could just get him, through college, if we could just get him in the right neighborhood, if we could just get him someplace else, then he'll be safe. But we see that none of those things are any guarantees.
Right. So, it really isn't. If you have a hot car, you're going to get pulled over all the time. If you I mean, that's just the reality of, to me, what it is to be a minority in America, especially in a major city. But even here in this small town, while I was in college, a friend of mine was giving me a ride home from work. It was probably about 3 of us in her car, including herself. She was giving a couple of us a ride home from work because we got off work at like 10:30. And the local police, they pulled her over. I said, well, what are they pulling you over for? Because she didn't run a light. We had just turned on the light. She didn't run the light. And they pulled her over, and then they asked for everyone's ID in the car. And I was not accustomed to that. I was only accustomed to you asking for the driver's ID. And so I'm in the back seat like, what do you need my ID for? I'm not driving the car. And later on, my husband, we were just friends at the time, I said, yeah, the police pulled this girl over, and they didn't even have a reason for pulling her over. They just took everyone's ID, went to their car, and came back and told her to be careful tonight. And he was like, they were probably checking to see if any of you all had warrants. And I said, well, what just gives them the right to just pull everybody over? Pull her over just randomly like that. She wasn't speeding. She didn't run the light. And I was like, they didn't say, well, your car matches the description from a crime. They didn't say any of that. They just took all of our IDs, went to their car, and came back and gave us all our IDs back and told us to have a good night.
Yeah, see, and some of us are watching too much TV because I thought they had to have probable cause or
and that's
something
okay.
like that. Yeah. say.
But I was a young college student. I'm just trying to make it through school. I handed my ID, but deep down inside, because I'll say something back in a minute. I want to be like, what do you need my ID for?
Yeah, and of course you can't say that. And in a perfect world, you could ask questions. But one of the things when we interviewed the police officer who's going to be, and we can't put her picture on the cover, but we're interviewing for the next issue, for the Mother's Day issue, a black woman who is a police officer who has a teenage son. And so what must that be like to be balanced in between two worlds? And I asked her, I want to know what you tell your son to do when he encounters the police. And so we'll have something in that, something in the magazine about that. But then get this. At the end of it, she showed it to one of her other friends who's a police officer and said, that might not work either. And so if you have police officers saying, look here,
that might not work.
Son, so we have to go with our God-given instincts. And I'm not talking about instincts to tear up stuff or to root, but we have to go with our God-given instincts when it comes to teaching our children how to survive. There was a saying, I don't know who said it, he who fights and runs away lives to fight another day. And so some of us are not living to fight anymore. So let's go to a commercial. Again, I want to honor our sponsors again, and then I'm going to just see, I believe we have a caller. We will be right back. It's Stephen Deer Salon.
That point right there, she acknowledges that the masculine energy or whatever. I mean, she acknowledges that it's not natural for a woman to be in this whole I'm the mama and the daddy narrative. But I don't think it does work, right? Like, if a woman is trying to tap into that whole masculine energy and discipline her son and be an enforcement arm, look how she's walking. Look at her. Like, come on, smack him on the back of his head after he's already walking away and gone, right? What's the other hit for? He's going home. Why is you still hitting him? But anyways, when you act like that whole, narrative that I think a lot of black women aren't even paying attention to, when the media wants to play you as the angry black woman narrative, they have all the evidence right here, right? So you'll be upset when they're putting you on commercials and TVs and you got the attitude and you're throwing a Pepsi can at a black dude because he looked at a Becky walking by in the park. You'll have a problem with that, but that's a different conversation. But back to what she was saying about how, playing both roles. I don't think you can effectively play both roles as a woman, because for you to tap into that masculine energy means you're losing some of that feminine energy and the nurturing aspect, which is what, a boy does need from his mother so that he can be a well-rounded adult. So when he goes into a relationship with the woman, he kind of, knows to expect that, or he should already have had those experiences with his mom, so that he knows how to deal with a woman who grew up in a two-parent household and understands roles and positions and whatnot. So I'm just saying, like, the whole I do both roles things, I don't buy into that. It doesn't exist. If she's trying to play the other role, that means she's not focusing totally on the role that she should be playing as the nurturer and the protector and the caregiver and all that stuff. You can't, and realistically speaking, most moms, like, we're ignoring the fact that if they take on that energy, it takes over, and that's normally what they have to deal with. And then when it comes to dating and relationships, then it's like, black women feel some type of way because the man that they're dealing with doesn't know how to respond, to her, and he doesn't know how to treat her the way she wants to be treated, because he's never had a woman act that way and have those expectations of a man. I wanted to say this too. We ignore this narrative that, moms are always doing these things with the best interest of the child. We're excusing the fact that, yeah, she's emotional, and that's just what women do. And again, that's one of the reasons why women don't make good especially when it's an older child, disciplining them because they're bringing all their other baggage and emotion into the situation. I remember a few years back, I was on Xbox Live talking to one of my boys. He left. I joined in his party. He wasn't in there, so it was a bunch of younger kids in there. And I'm like, who's these kids he playing with? High school kids or whatever. But and the one kid kept talking about the other dude's mom, like not in a negative way, but he kept bringing her up, mentioning her. And I'm like, all right, why this dude? I'm just being nosy, trying to listen to their conversation, whatever. And the dude was all like, he kept saying, your mom made this, your mom made that. And, this dude's, he was talking about his friend, his boy, mom. And his boy's mom, he was like respecting her and giving her props because she was like a mother to him because his own mom, he was in that one of those situations where she's frustrated, single mom, you look like your daddy, you ain't, one of those type of conversations that we see, right? That we don't ever talk about. And, but he was constantly talking about how, the nurturing, the loving, the caring, the submissiveness of his friend's mom and how she was exhibiting that to him, and she's not even his kid. He's over there eating dinner. He's over there chilling with their family events. He doesn't want to be at home with his mom because she's operating in these masculine energies. The kid said that I knew how my night was going to go when I came home from school by the way she slammed the door when she walked in the house, right? So we don't ever have those conversations. Women will typically look at that man when he grows up and he's emotionally unstable and he has some, non-masculine tendencies and how he has conversations, and they say, you suck, look at him. But we don't ever call out women who are doing this. We don't ever address the fact that this happens. How many times have you been in the hood or something like that and you've seen a little boy like 4 or 5 years old and his mom's dragging him, cussing him out the same way this mom was cussing out this boy in this situation. That happens a lot. I remember my aunt checked a girl, my great aunt actually. She checked the girl. She's like, don't let me ever see you talking to you something like that again. Like she put it on blast because and the funny thing is she saw her doing it on a separate day that I saw her doing it. So this is some normal behavior for her. And I'm saying we don't look at what happens to these black boys that grow up in these situations. Can we address the fact that a lot of these mothers are horrible mothers and they take out their anger and their rage from the man that they mess with, or if they have a stressful occupation, they come home from that and they don't know how to process it and they take it out on their children. And then that kid is a punching bag and he has all kinds of issues when he goes up into life. We don't have that conversation. We just look at the father wasn't there, it's his fault because the kid turned out to be a delinquent. Lo and behold, same analogy again, an example, if the man is a Dr. Ben Carson or goes to the NFL or anything like that, it's that's all applaud for the single mom's good job. So we need to have that conversation definitely, and I'm gonna try to get back on, with Michelle Aiken for her show and have that dialogue and have that conversation about how we praise the absence of the men, we demonize the absence of men, but praise the women's choices, and how this new form of single motherhood. In a few years, we're not going to be able to do the whole where's the dad thing. With the number one or the new form of single motherhood are women who are like not uneducated, not, living in poverty, but women who actually have degrees, have a market value occupation, and because their careers are demanding of their time and attention, they don't see marriage or dating at any time or have time for that. So they're having they're going to sperm banks, they're adopting kids, and they're still in their situations being with single moms. They're one, deformed or sick child or one element of their own, sickness or a job loss away from being in the same situation economically as, the Keisha and the Shaquanda who, were just being dumb and being promiscuous and, not protecting themselves, right? They're one slip up away from being in that same situation. So it's like the whole, and I did the video Creating Children Without Men. You got that evil Dr. Scientist chick, she's working on trying to be able to create children without men. So shortly, the whole, where's the dad thing is not going to even be a conversation because I want to move forward to that. I want to move forward to the fact that a lot of women have children with men with no intentions of marriage or no intentions of co-parenting at all. And that's never taken into account when there's the whole "where's your father" arguments.
Of course, our ground rules for calls, as always, we will be respectful. We can disagree. We don't have to be disagreeable. Our motivation for doing these things is love, and finding solutions. So I am going to our caller, Way. You are on Bold Moving with Michelle and Sharonda. How are you?
All right, you ladies.
Good,
Good
thank
morning.
you. You have a comment?
Yeah, I do see the situation as emasculating, not necessarily just when she was swinging off at him outside, but all these interviews going on talk shows, and it's a serious situation. It seemed like it's now his comic relief, like the way Rosie spoke to him and what Raven Simone said to him about how did you feel about getting your, like that, and he's looking down, he's not looking in the camera. You look at all the interviews with Anderson Cooper, like we're not paying attention to how it's affecting him. And we say that, to save his life, but dude, if you remember one of the first videos that went viral of a father beating his nephew, and it went viral on YouTube and Vine and whatnot, and that kid still died. He was still murdered, like shortly after that video. So his attempt to save his life didn't work. There's a lot of people who got whooped and beat that are in prison that still are dead. And I understand she's a mom of 6 children, not married, and that might be what she thought was right to do when she was caught up in the emotion. But I think in situations like that, you got to step back and look at, what it's doing. And then there are times in a man's life where he'll have to be, might rebel and go against authority, right reason. And what does that image send though when the son is trying to step up to the plate like we're always being told, but then like because a mother, like you said, they're wired differently, she might not want him to be out doing those things. So then when he's in his own adult life, he might not know how to stand up in the workforce, in the classroom, for his rights when he's supposed to. So I think there's other conversations we can ask. I think one of your hosts alluded to the View when Terry Crews was on there and how he was talking about the importance of fathers, but we ignore the fact that Whoopi Goldberg and her other hosts were trying to say that fathers weren't needed. So on one hand, we demonize men for their absence, but we praise women for their choices. If in the media, the narrative is that fathers aren't needed, we can do it without you. How do we convey that to young men that they are needed?
You bring up a very great point, yes.
Go ahead, Sharonda.
Oh, yeah. I was just, I did remember that part of the interview because he was saying that, and the only person who actually stood up and agreed with him as far as the Terry Crews interview was Sherry Shepherd. Yeah. And all the other mothers were saying, they know plenty of single mothers, they were single mothers, and that it's not necessary to have a man in that child's life. But I completely agree with you because there's only so much as a woman that I could teach my son. He's only 2, but even now there are sometimes when I just want to kind of like pet him up, or I may correct him, but the way my husband is going to correct him is completely different. And the way that he's showing him to do things is completely different from the way I'm showing him. And as a man, there are certain things that he's going to be able to teach him how to carry himself, how to talk to other men, how to talk to young ladies. Those are things I'm not going to be able to teach him because I was not a boy and I'm not a man. I'm a woman. And that is the gap. I'm trying to think of a better word, but that is the gap that we have in today's society is what about the people who don't have a father in their life or uncle or grandfather or somebody in their family that's a male figure that they can reach up to and look at for guidance because they need to learn how to be man from a man who's grown up as a boy in America and has become a man and is successful. And I honestly don't know what we can do. I mean, I know there are programs, like in Chicago, they have, a lot of mentoring programs where you can take your young man, but then you're dealing with things like, do you trust these people with your kids or do you not trust them? So there's just honestly, I honestly do not know the answer. I would love to say that. I hope the mentoring programs work, but they're not with the child 24/7. Well, no parent is, but they're not in the home with the child to know their signs and signals and everything like that. Sure.
So, Way, can you tell me what you think might have worked better from that perspective? Would it be best to let him riot and protest and maybe get killed to make a statement? I'm just trying to understand.
I don't, like I said, well, she was beating her son to protect her for the same police that when she can no longer hit him like that, and he won't respond that way. So she'll call the same cops on him that she was protecting from one day if he doesn't change his attitude, or if he doesn't get involved in gang violence or anything like that. I think she could have walked up to her son and said, let's go home, give him a hug, and if she wanted to discipline him, do that in the privacy of their own home, not out there in the streets like that. And it also buys into the stereotype of the angry black woman, too, that's always on the media, because you got Fox News who usually, when they take a woman like that, they don't put her in the light and put her on the pedestal. They normally say, this is the welfare mother, the non-working, the multiple children. So they're putting her up on the pedestal. Then you look at the liberal news, who generally don't support hitting children at all for any reason. Like you said, you heard Rosie Perez says, I usually don't support hitting kids, but in this case I do. So to me, it's a distraction to me. It's like, why are all different viewpoints that usually have different opinions on her situation all co-sign it? After Adrian Peterson hit his son, he was fired from his job. Creflo Dollar hit his daughter, he was arrested. Like, why are we praising her when she did similar things to what they did? Hello?
Yes. No, we're here. I
like, if his father was out there hitting on him like that, or if his father's out there hitting his daughter like that, do you think that would be allowed to happen? Would someone not step up and try to stop him? Is it okay? It seems like the image is that it's okay for the black mother to beat her son, but if a black father disciplines his son or daughter or whatever, it's a problem.
I think, I personally think that the only reason that she's getting praised, especially from a group of people who normally wouldn't praise child discipline by hitting in any manner, is because he was throwing rocks at police. And that's just my honest opinion. It's because he was throwing rocks at police officers. Because had he been out there throwing rocks at the protesters, and she had grabbed him up, they wouldn't have cared. It probably wouldn't even have made news. But because he was throwing rocks at police officers, and we are trying to say, police officers, they're out here doing their job, which some of them are. I'm related to some. I know some. They are out there, and they are protecting and serving. But then you do have officers who use their authority and in a negative way. And so because she's being a mother, a concerned mother, and she had already had a discussion with him about not even being out there, probably just trying to keep him alive because she didn't know what was going to happen, which riots did occur. And she sees him throwing rocks at police. She's trying to save his life, and other people, just like you said, who normally wouldn't condone it at all, are saying, yes, that's a great job, because he was out there throwing rocks at police officers. So,
what do you think, though, about...
I'm sorry, I got lost. I'm sorry. I got lost. I'm sorry, I got disconnected. I'm back now. And we have 4 minutes. But that's okay, because I want Way to have a closing comment. You are a black man, and I'm not sure how old you are, but tell us, go ahead.
I said 32.
You're 32. Okay, and I like your comment that you would like to have seen her go up to him, hug him, and say, let's go home.
Yeah.
Okay. And surrounded by his friends, you think he would have said, okay, Mom?
I mean, when she was swinging on him, you see how he backed down, so he does have some respect for her. Like, he didn't, try to hit her back. So I'm sure he easily went home with her. And then she could have, when they got behind closed doors, did what she had to do.
Yeah, I completely understand, because that's the type of parent I had.
Yeah.
Like, she did not, I knew what the look was when she gave the look.
Mm-hmm.
For my dad, I knew the look, like, I'm in trouble. And when I get home, I'm going to get it. But they did not embarrass me, sort of say, in front of my friends by physically spanking me or anything like that in front of my friends. They gave me the look that let me know I needed to calm down because I was already in trouble. and I would calm down. But that was because I had that respect for them. And I even understand what you're saying. I just even noticed his body language on The View. He was kind of slouched over because it's like they're basically just praising her, and they're not even thinking about how it's affecting him. I agree with all of that. I did notice all of that.
The issue, though, is that, like, this is, people say, like, we got our butts whipped back in the day, and I did, too, in the privacy of my home, not out in the public. The media, like, this is never going away. There's going to be Vine videos. I've done commentary on it. There's probably a million different videos of personal opinions on it. He's going to see all this. It's not going anywhere. And then his face was concealed and hidden, and she exposed it. So if the cops did want to retaliate to him, that they know who he is now. So it's like different area. Like, I don't like the whole beating your kids on YouTube and on TV to publicly embarrass them. To them. Some of these kids might end up committing suicide or doing things that they wouldn't normally do because of the pressure. So I'm like, you got to think about those type of things. It's like, it's not back in the day like it used to be where stuff is stayed in the home, where now everything in the home happens for the world to see.
Way, thank you so much. And see, we have 1:39, which is why I have to end this. But you see what dialogue does? Because I actually see your point, and I agree with you. That could have been handled better. From a mother's perspective, I was saying she was trying to snatch him by any means necessary. But yeah, and as we talk more together, we will come up with solutions for how to treat each other better, how to respect each other's positions and each other's wiring, and to be better for our children. Thank you so much, Way. I hope that you call back again. Sharonda, any closing comments?
No. I really appreciate Way for calling in and bringing in that perspective, because we hadn't even discussed that, but I totally agree with him. And it's just amazing how social media in itself has changed how things are handled, because even if that would have happened, it wouldn't be all over the internet, all for the world to see.
That's right.
And now everyone around the world is going to see it, and he's right. It's not going anywhere. So.
Yeah. I unplugged for a couple of days because it was too much for me. So in the last 20